Good morning. My name is Bill Davies, the moderator for this year's series of legislative breakfasts, which are occurring without food, but which are hosted by Vermont's North Country Chamber of Commerce. In behalf of the Chamber, I'd like to welcome everyone this morning. Pleased to welcome Dan Pellerin, who is the Vice Chair of the Chamber, who organizes these breakfasts. I also like to give special recognition to Todd Perano, who is allowing the same to occur. As I think several of you know, I am technologically challenged and, wouldn't have a clue what to do, but Todd is taking care of it all. If there's anyone, and I don't believe there is, but if there's anyone here who isn't on the email list, please make sure that you give your name to Dan Pellerin so that you can be added to the list. Again, certainly appreciative of Northeast Kingdom TV and specifically Todd Perano for allowing us to be present here this morning and for taking care of all the technology stuff. What we have this morning, one senator and two representatives as our special guests. This is following the pattern that we have established ever since, as Senator Starr said, the mid-'80s or whenever these breakfasts began. And we'll start off with Senator Starr. Bobby serves as chair of the Senate Committee on Agriculture and as a member of the Senate Committee on Appropriations, the Legislative Study Committee on Wetlands, the Vermont Milk Commission, and the Task Force to Revitalize the Vermont Dairy Industry. And as I've said before, if I make any errors as far as the committees and so on that the various legislators serve on, please let me know, because I have gone by what is on the legislative website. Again, what we ask is that legislators take 10 or 15 minutes and let us know what is happening in the legislature this year, and then we'll open up the floor to question and comments from you, the citizens of Orleans County. Senator Starr.
I think he's muted.
You're muted, Bobby.
Yeah, can you tell him to unmute himself?
Okay, Bobby, would you please unmute yourself? I have no clue how one would do that, but that's why we've got Todd here.
I think I'm good to go.
You are good to go. We can hear you.
Well, thanks a lot, Bill, for the introduction, and would like to thank you and Dan and Northeast Kingdom TV, Todd, for hosting the breakfast. It's certainly different than normal, but it's good to see so many sign in this morning and be part of this. As you mentioned, I do chair in the Senate. You're on two committees, and I do chair the Senate Agricultural Committee in the morning, and then serve on the Senate Appropriations Committee in the afternoon. Just for a little background, we did in ag, we did an awful lot last spring in regards to the dairy recovery money, setting that program up to help our dairy farmers with COVID relief money. And I should report that Orleans County was the third largest recipient of these dollars. Of course, Franklin with more farms came in first, Addison County was second, and we came in third. And we had about 75% of all of our farmers receive money, throughout the entire state, which was actually a pretty good results. The Ag Agency and VHCB, along with VITA, helped promote and put those funds out. It was a little over like $27 million. And we had enough money to reach more farmers, and we did reach about all that signed up, but some of them didn't sign up and couldn't get them to sign up. They didn't want to sign up. So anyways, this year we've been working quite a lot on food, allowing farms to take food residuals on their farms to make compost, and also to use this to feed chickens. That was S-102 bill, and that we just passed that from the Senate to the House, so the House will have that to work on, during the spring session of the legislature. A big issue that we've spent quite a lot of time on was the Universal Meals Program. And that particular program it's voluntary at the present time. And we have somewhere between 70 and 80 of our schools in Vermont that participate in that program. And with what the bottom line of that is that all children that go to school eat for free, and it's reimbursed. It's a program through the USDA, and they basically pay for the meals, and the schools actually do better in that particular program than if they charge some, and some eat with reduced meals and some eat for free. It saves teachers from collecting money from the ones that have to pay both on reduced and full pay meals. It also allows, in these schools that are offering universal meals, there's a promotion part in there that the hot lunch program has to buy a certain percentage of its food from local producers. So it not only helps children eat healthier, but it also helps the growers of these different products that they use to have a market throughout the winter months for their products that they grow on the farm. That's S-100, and we're kind of in a little difficult position with that, because we've gotten a lot of pushback from superintendents, principals, and saying that it's going to cost them too much to implement this. And you have to be able to take full advantage of the program, you have to have like 40% of your children have to be with Title I programs. But we're finding that what is happening is schools aren't getting all these forms filled out that they're supposed to have the parents fill out in regards to income and things of that level. So we're working on setting up a better way to be able to achieve uh, those those papers either through the tax department or the ed department, so that it won't burden the schools to have to pick that stuff up. We've also passed out a lot of farms where small farms are having trouble getting their animals slaughtered and processed. And we have put in we have a mini budget bill that we passed out, and I believe the House is basically in the process of passing it or have passed it. But we put $300,000 in there to help slaughter facilities expand, buy more modern equipment that would speed up the processing. And there's some money in there for training of meat cutters and meat processing. Behind us is going to be another batch of money that would go further, but this 300,000 is to analyze and to figure out what the slaughter facilities need, and then help some of the smaller ones, because $300,000 won't go very far. But in July, there would be some more money appropriated in the big budget bill to help push that forward. A lot of people testified that they're out over a year on getting their animals processed. Well, that's a real long time. And the ecosystems program, we've worked on that in the past, but we did put $250,000 in the mini bill to help move that forward with both soil health, water quality, be able to have better soils for water retention. And so that's moving forth. And we have also set up the dairy task force, which you mentioned on your introductions, Bill. And that we're getting members appointed from both the Senate and the House. We also worked on an issue. You hear a lot about housing throughout Vermont and the lack of, and we had a group of people come in and were really complaining about the lack of and quality of farm labor housing. And so we've had Gus Seelick in, who heads up VHCB, Vermont Housing and Land Conservation Program. And that's where most of the money flows through there. A lot of it does, to take care and help with housing projects. And he's agreed to work farm labor housing in with regular rental housing programs that he operates. So we should see an increase in that. I also serve on the Senate Appropriations Committee, and of course that's a busy committee, and we deal with all the state budgets, COVID money. If there's any money spent, it rolls through either both the House Appropriations Committee as well as the Senate. And we have put like $5 million into the mortgage assistance for homeowners to prevent the loss of foreclosure or the loss of homes through foreclosure. 1.8 million for the what do they call them, CUDs, the broadband districts to help push the broadband forward. And I believe it was there's $150 million from the House, I believe, that they just sent over that would expand out broadband in the rural areas. We have a little problem with the local utility companies allowing wire to be strung on their poles. And last week we passed a bill helping utilities with their charges that they and their taxes that they pay. And I said, well, I brought it up on the Senate floor. I said, well, they were in asking for help. So did the committee confront them with the problem we're having, allowing broadband wire to be strung on their utility poles? And of course, the answer came back, well, no, we didn't talk to them about that. And I said, well, usually if you're making a deal with and helping somebody, when they come asking for it, it's when you ask them, well, we'll help you with this, but you need to help us with that. So anyways, it's got the committee to thinking about that. And hopefully we'll get broadband out to our rural citizens on REA poles or Vermont Electric poles that always go to the last house. I think I'm running out of time, Bill, so I'll stop there, but be glad to answer any questions that people have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Starr. Now I'd like to call upon Representative Mark Higley, who serves as a member of the House Committee on Government Operations, the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, the Vermont Forest Carbon Sequestration Working Group, and the Special Recount Panel, and probably a few other things. But Mark.
Well, thank you and good morning. I guess first I'd like to run down last Thursday and Friday, the House did pass the 2022 budget. So I'll hit the highlights of that. It's roughly a $7 billion budget. As Bobby just mentioned, there's $150 million in there for broadband build out. There's $100 million in there for clean water initiatives. There's $100 million in there for IT upgrades projects, such as the UI, unemployment insurance programs and programs in DMV. You may have heard about the unemployment insurance issues we had last year when so many people were filing. $50 million for affordable housing, $50 million for the transition of the homeless out of hotels and motels, $300,000 to keep the warm line going. That's been a new contact line for folks that are needing help during this COVID crisis. $80 million in higher ed. So again, $70 million of that's going to Vermont State Colleges to keep them going, as well as $7 million for UVM. There was $40 million in that was set aside for what we call our budget adjustment for next year. I guess that's about it. The other bill that we passed that folks might be interested in is the child care bill. That was about a $13.3 million total. It looks like $5 million more for subsidies for families for child care. Some student loan and a scholarship money for folks that are getting into the childcare industry, and another $4.5 million in that for IT upgrades for DCF to make this all work. There was a provision in that I was pretty concerned about, where they had a goal of no Vermont family will spend any more than 10% of their income on childcare by 2025. That provision, from what I understood, was put into a study because, again, they didn't know how much that might be or where that money would come from. DCF at one time estimated that figure to be as much as $300 to $500 million a year. So it's really something that's got to be figured out before we initiate another goal like we did in the Global Warming Solutions Act with no real firm figures as to what that's going to cost us. And then I guess the biggest thing in government operations, if you can imagine, is the pension issue. That's pretty much what we've been spending all our time on in the past couple of weeks. It was, just to give you a little background, I guess, the Vermont State Employees Association members, their pension fund is at 66%. And the Vermont Teachers Retirement System is at only 51%. And what that, amounts to an unfunded liability is $3.9 billion. But then when you add in teachers' health care and other benefits, that total unfunded liability is $5.6 billion. And what's happening is this year alone, the state had to kick in another $100 million in 1 year just to keep things going. To give you an idea of how much the state is putting in overall this year, it's $316 million plus an additional $150 million through the appropriations bill to kind of alleviate some of this unfunded liability going forward. So again, as you can imagine, and this has been going on for years, this pension unfunded liability can't continue. What it does is it affects our general fund budgets because we have to make up that difference. We have to contribute that additional $100 million that we put in above and beyond the 316 this year alone came from the general fund, or it will come from the general fund. It also affects our bonding rate, our bond rating, which has already been downgraded at one point. You may have heard too initially that the treasurer had come forward in January with a plan as to how to alleviate some of this problem with some pretty concerning proposals. And then just last Wednesday, our House Government Operations Chair and Vice Chair came up with a proposal of their own. Again, even I would say more controversial than the treasurer's proposal. And we've had public hearings on Friday night from 4 to 6, and tonight we're having another public hearing from 4 to 6:30 on it. There's a lot of changes, and I think one of the misconceptions in a sense out there is that it's all the state's issue in regards to that unfunded liability. And a lot of it does have to do with the experiencing a decline in the assumed rates of returns, which is a national trend. But there's other things too that the treasurer wanted to make sure that people knew, and especially in the Vermont State Employees Association retirement plan, there's retirement experience, including retirement incentives adopted by us, the legislature. There's a salaries per assumed levels or investment returns that they're not the primary factor. And then the teachers, there's retirements, teacher turnover related to pressures on local school budgets, on more recently the COVID. The single largest source of pension losses outside of the assumption changes. So again, those are some of the things. There's continued funding of the healthcare in pensions funds without sufficient appropriations. You can see that there's a lot involved here, and it's taken me quite a bit just to get educated on all the ins and outs and what a actuary is, and the VPIC board, and It's a pretty complicated issue. I've tried to stay involved. I think last time I was here, I mentioned I had met with a group called the Reason Foundation. They've been working across other states in regards to this issue. It's not a Vermont issue alone. What a lot of states are doing is having a hybrid system now, moving away from this defined benefit program to a defined contribution program. It doesn't seem that our legislature, for whatever reason, wants to move in that direction because they aren't even considering it at this point. They might at some point, again, because our chair had said she doesn't want to leave any rock unturned. And that to me means that we should be considering this. The Vermont Business Roundtable has talked about this before. So I think for me, if we're going to go down some of these roads that are pretty harsh on changes in the retirement system for state employees as well as teachers, I think we do need to look at everything. So again, that's a huge issue. We're trying to, the unions are in particular trying to get us to slow down, look at a summer study. There are some benefits to that in my mind, but again, I want to know the cost as to how much it's going to cost us to hold off on another year. And I guess I've only got a couple more minutes maybe, but another issue that was a little bit of a concern for me was when I was on the Energy and Technology Committee, the Rygate biomass plant generally has a 2-year proposal from the Public Utilities Commission for a standard offer. They need that to keep moving forward. There's a new company that's purchased it. They're looking to put in a heat recovery system to make it more, not necessarily profitable, but an initiative anyway to upgrade the system. And initially last year, there was a bill that came out of the Senate that was passed that gave them that. It was a 10-year proposal. And now the Senate has walked back from that and they're only looking at giving them a 2-year proposal. So I'm hoping that going forward, that something more can be worked out. I guess there is quite a subsidy in a sense that the state is contributing for that standard proposal. But on the other hand, the forest product industry has talked about how very important it is that that plant stays open for a market for our low-grade timber. A lot of places in Maine and New Hampshire are closing down. One huge issue could be current use. The current use folks in Vermont that have a forestry plan, they have to follow their forestry plan, and a lot of that might be cutting and having a market for that low-grade timber. So if a plant like the Rygate plant shuts down, that's going to be an issue. The other issue is, and I mentioned this in the Energy and Technology Committee a couple of years ago, is Burlington has a biomass plant, the McNeil plant. So again, these plants burn wood chips, maybe aren't that efficient, but again, they definitely have what I consider a need here in Vermont. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be here and chat with you folks, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. And now I would like to welcome Representative Woodman Page, who serves as a member of the House Committee on Healthcare. Woodman.
Thank you. I also serve on the Rural Economic Development Caucus, as well as the National Guard Caucus and the Tourism Caucus. And I thought I'd just go over a few things that we're dealing with. The first one is H46. It's a mental health law bill that recently passed. It's for people seeking mental health care in a hospital setting, and it requires an agreement between the person and the treating center to to notify that person and ensure that he understands the treatment that he or she will be receiving once he or she is admitted to a hospital. There's also an understanding of that inpatient that treatment may also include being in a locked unit, and requesting a discharge may be deferred if the physician determines that the person needs additional treatment. So that's one bill in our healthcare committee. Another one is H104. This is to establish a working group on telehealth and interstate practices, looking at regulating healthcare professionals and the treatment of Vermont patients using telemedicine. That healthcare professional could be anywhere within North America or even the world treating that individual. And there are certain issues relating to, how do you pay for it, or how much the insurance companies will pay, overseeing that professional, making sure he or she has all their medical certificates and things of that nature. Another bill that I believe I spoke about last time was H210. This is addressing disparities and promoting equity in the Vermont healthcare system. It will create a commission and a healthcare equity office to ensure that there is equality and equity throughout our healthcare system. As you may remember, I wasn't crazy about it. I'm still not crazy about this bill, but I did vote for it in the end. And hopefully it'll do some good for the BIPOC people, for the LGBTQ community, as well as those suffering from disabilities. Another bill that healthcare looked at was H430. This was expanding eligibility for Dr. Dinosaur to all income eligible children and pregnant individuals, regardless of their immigration status. And in addition to that, we also passed H439. This was a bill that provided roughly about almost $3 million in one-time funding for our tourism marketing once COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. We also have H89, it limited liability for agritourism businesses, where somebody can sue a farmer for having their agribusiness and opening it up to the general public. We've talked about broadband infrastructure. There's also state aid for school construction. And one other issue was the National Guard Caucus was also looking at not taxing retirements of military personnel. It was considered that it might be a bonus to attract these individuals to Vermont. They would not be a burden to the state because they have a pension. They also have health care. They also have families. Many cases, these individuals are professional individuals along with their wives that can bring a lot to a community, as well as children. In many cases, they're fairly young when they retire and can contribute to their communities. I would not have voted for the bill since I'm obviously, many of you know I'm retired military, but I certainly would have promoted it. I think it is a good program, and I think it's a good way of bringing people in, as opposed to the program where we have, I don't know, $5 or $10 million that we try to encourage people to move here with various jobs. So that's another thing. You wouldn't have to pay for a military person to move here because their last assignment, they get a free moving expenses to the place that they want to retire to. So those are some of the things that I've been dealing with in healthcare, the Rural Economic Development, National Guard Caucus, and the Tourism Caucus. So I guess we'll leave it there and wait for your questions.
Thank you. We're now open for questions and comments from members of the audience.
Well, can I just say one thing, Bill? And this tags along with Mark Higley's comment about our pension systems. And I know all of the legislators and the senator will all agree that whatever we do with the pension system, we need to get it right. Because if we don't, we're going to lose a lot of good teachers. We're going to see a number of people probably jump ship and retire early, perhaps, as a result of this. It's not just going to affect our teachers, it's also going to affect our state workers, which we so valued during the pandemic. It's going to affect our judiciary, our law enforcement, healthcare workers. It's going to be a big, well, it's going to be a big priority for the legislature once we see a bill that comes before us. But it is a big issue, and we really do need to get it right. And I know Representative Higley and his group are working hard on it. So thank you.
Okay. And now we'll open up to questions and comments from the citizens of Orleans County. Again, please keep your questions and comments as brief as possible so that we can give as many people as possible the opportunity to speak. We do need to adjourn at 9 o'clock, so that doesn't give us a lot of time. And the first hand that I've seen raised is Jim Davis.
Okay, well, that'll take care of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Bill. This is actually for Representative Page. Wanted to just kind of get your opinion and thoughts, and Senator Starr and Representative Higley can chime in as well. What are your thoughts of the border potentially being opened up this summer? I see that as a major issue for a lot of the businesses here on the border. Just want to get your feeling of what you're seeing on the governmental side between the talks between Vermont and Quebec.
Nothing.
Well, I personally haven't seen anything with the talks with Vermont. I think it's more of a national issue with the president and the prime minister. Obviously, I would love to see the border open, but I think perhaps when we get more shots in arms and have a little more control of the pandemic, maybe things will open up. We certainly benefit from having that commerce from our Canadian friends, and I know a lot of us all enjoy going over to Canada for various reasons. So I'll be happy to see that border open. It is obviously open for commerce, for trucking to and from Canada to the United States, but I look forward to it being fully open. Thank you.
Starr.
Raise your hand. He's not ready.
Senator Starr?
He wasn't asked.
Oh, we need to unmute.
He doesn't matter. They let them all comment.
Yes, thank you, Jim, for the question. I think there's more of a problem getting Canada to move to open it up, the border up, than it is on our side moving to get it opened up. But it's very important that we do get the border opened. And I would hope that they would, we're sending vaccine up to Canada because they're lacking vaccine. And I'm hoping that our Washington crew would negotiate with them. Sure, we're going to send you this vaccine to help you and your people out, but we would expect you to reciprocate by opening up the borders, even if it's on a limited basis of numbers, but living right near the border, a mile away, it's very difficult. It'd be like us in Troy not being able to go to Westfield. It's kind of hard, and And it's very hard on families that have people on both sides of the border. And I really can't see where there'd be a problem having it opened up, as long as everybody's following, the rules and things. So we really, when I speak with Leahy or Welch or Bernie, I always mention, you ought to be working on getting the border open. So I hope it comes this summer.
Thank you. Representative Higley.
No, just quickly, I'd like to say that the sooner the better. I know I was on a panel a while back with some folks up at J Peak, and that's a huge loss to them. And the sooner that border can open, the better in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll call upon Brian Knoll.
I'll never get on. Doesn't matter.
Thank you. This is Brian Knoll. I'm the president and CEO here at North Country Hospital, and thank you all for hosting this morning. My comments are more centered on community health as it relates to hospitals. So as I think you all know, and we've all realized across the country, that community health influences and responders are our hospitals, our local hospitals. We're never closed. We're always at the ready. And so it's just imperative that as we look at legislative activity that relates to hospitals, that there's just an emphasis of keeping hospitals healthy, and that allows us to keep our communities safe. Hospitals currently have of all the hospitals in Vermont, 14 hospitals have a 3.2 million operating margin on 2.4 billion system-wide. So that's very, very small margins that we operate in the area of finance. And when it comes to regulation, just continue to go down the path of reducing regulatory burdens that allows for innovation. We've used, just with the COVID season, we've been able to use telehealth much more consistent and impactful because of the freedoms allowed us, not only within the state, but also across the country. And so we favor any telehealth activity. And so I appreciate the work group that you're on, Representative Page. We also, another example would be the Interstate Nursing Pact. That's Senate Bill 48 that's now headed to House, I understand. And that allows for nurses to have through their license to work in multiple states. So that it allows us to quickly to attract talent from outside the state without any headaches with them getting a Vermont license. And then we also have the Green Mountain Care Board that requests frankly, a lot of information. They do a lot of requests for information, and we see no relative value in what they use that information for. So that overburdens the hospitals with setting aside time and energy to populate study after study after study through the course of quite a few years. And yet here we are still with operating margins as slender as they are. I'm encouraged to hear the discussion about the broadband and the build out of the broadband. So thank you, Senator Starr, for your activity in regards to that. The hospital here applied for a telemedicine grant that seeks to make an impact in that space as well. We were the only hospital in Vermont and the only hospital in New England that received this $1 million 3-year grant. And so we're excited about using that for the greater good of this community. It impacts we also, with this, will also provide resources, capital for the 4 local nursing homes, for their telehealth infrastructure, for Vermont Technical College, and also for the Journey to Recovery. So we're excited about the opportunity to use these federal resources. That was a USDA grant, highly competitive, and we're excited about using that. And then Representative Higley, you mentioned about the biomass plant.
Okay, we really need to shorten up the question.
Yeah,
again,
sure. I'm almost
running
done.
out of time, and
yep.
So if we can
This
start
is my
with
last
Senator
comment.
Starr.
this is my last comment. We do have a biomass
Passed
plant
on
here
to
on
Senator
site.
Starr.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Brian. I know that, the hospital is critical to our area and very important to our citizens. And of course, I believe we all support the hospital as hard as we possibly can. Telehealth medicine and broadband run right together, because a lot of our folks live in rural areas and they're getting older, and a lot of times, just to do a blood pressure check or something, it's hard to do that. But telehealth could take care of a lot of those issues, and we have put more money into that. I can't tell you exactly how much. The Interstate Compact Bill for nursing, we just passed the other day and have sent that to the House. And it makes a lot of sense to allow nurses to come and our nurses, if they so desire, to go, across to New Hampshire. So that bill's moving good. The other thing that we've done is we put, 1.4 million into helping people go to college to get to be LPNs, and to help slow down the shortage of nurses. And hopefully, that's both for men and women, or young men and young women, or however age they want to be. But it should help both areas. And we're hoping to have enough money there to do 40 to 45 new students. And maybe the House will expand that if at all possible. I don't know what your question was in regards to the Rygate plant, but we did pass that bill, but they got in a wrangle in the Finance Committee over the years. But I'm sure with the importance of that plant, we aren't going to let it close. And we didn't get into the battle the other day because it wasn't in a positive move. But that plant is very, it's very much an economic development for our area, as well as producing power. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Bill.
Representative Higley.
Yeah, I'll move on to Woody to answer the questions in regards to the hospital end of things.
Okay. First off, we all recognize that North Country Hospital is a huge employer and a huge benefit to our community, and without it, any of us probably wouldn't be here. So I'll also add on to what Senator Starr said. There's been allocated about $5 million for nursing and primary care scholarships. That's in the budget. We've also extended the flexibility for time for the audio-only telephone healthcare, where, if individuals couldn't make it to the hospital because of the COVID or because of other issues, that they could call in, or their primary care physician could call into the patient. And so that's some of those things. The timeline has been extended through the pandemic period. I will also add, I know there's a number of other questions that maybe are out there. You can always give me a call at home. It's 334-6988. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I recognize Pam Lads.
Hi, I'm the other one. I'm Ann Chirillo, and I'm working with AARP Tax Aid this year, and we're anxious to find out whether or not there's a bill that will link up to the federal tax relief that's been given for $10,200 worth of unemployment, which the feds say they are not taxing this year. that comes across into the AGI in Vermont and creates a question of what the legislature is going to do with that. Is there a bill in progress right now to forgive, with respect to Vermont, $10,200 worth of unemployment? Thank you.
Okay,
Tax.
Senator Starr.
Yeah, there is a bill, Angelina, and the big issue there is trying to figure out that with that exemption, it's going to add up to like $12 million hole in the budget. And we're trying to figure out if we can move some of that COVID money that we got out of Washington to cover some. You can't use that to cover that loss. So we're trying to figure out a way to take that COVID money and pay other bills that's in the general fund, and then take the general fund dollars back out to cover that $12 million hole. And so we're working on that, and hopefully, you know, the tax department claims that it's going to cost a tremendous amount of money to set a system up to be able to collect on that anyhow. So we're working on that in the Senate, and I'm not sure about the House, if, you know, because we divide stuff up between the House and the Senate. And so I know we're working on it in the Finance Committee and Appropriations on the Senate side.
Thank you.
Representative Higley.
Yeah, no, thank you, Bobby, for that, because I've had a lot of folks reaching out to me, especially tax preparers, asking that very question. So I'm glad to hear that you folks in the Senate, I'm not sure, I think they're talking about it in Ways and Means over in the House. But again, I'm not familiar. So the information that you gave me, Bobby, was helpful. Thank you.
Representative Page.
Yes, the only thing I'll say is Representative Higley and myself received an email in which the state will not be able to tax that $10,200 for unemployment benefits, but obviously they're working to do it next year. So this year it will not be taxed. I hope that helps. Oh, and one other thing I should mention, in our big fiscal bill, there was a roughly 10 million, I believe, for planning and purchasing of property for a new courthouse. Don't know where it's going yet, but you know, there's a lot of speculation, obviously, but there has been a great deal of money allocated for the building and planning of that.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Tim Daly, and I think that's the last hand that I've seen, and it's going to probably take us right up until our closing time. Tim?
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. So I was listening, and I represent Joshua House, which is a nonprofit that's been around in the Northeast Kingdom for the last 25 years. And we help prevent homelessness and help people to remain sustainable. And so when you were talking about money in the budget for to help with homelessness, I think that was Representative Higley. Could you tell me how much money that was again? And so that's part of my question, but my question is about the tourism. Joshua House currently working toward putting together a scavenger hunt to help businesses in and around Orleans, Essex, and Caledonia counties in May by having this scavenger hunt where people will go out and take pictures of the front of every business. And I was interested in the money for tourism, rather than reaching out to the people to bring them into Vermont. Are there ways of funding to get the people that are in Vermont to be moving around better? I don't know if that's a good question or a bad one, but it's my question.
Okay, Senator Starr.
Yes, I know. I mean, we've got millions and millions of dollars going into homes and the homelessness number, I think Mark mentioned 10 million or 5 million.
50 million. 50 million.
Well, you know,
Okay.
that's on $50 million is an awful lot of money and should be able to provide a lot of, they need to be permanent places. This renting motel units for $70 and $80 a night is throwing your money down a rat hole. And so we need to build permanent or have permanent housing facilities and work these people out so when new ones come, they would have a place to go into. Maybe Mark can elaborate a little bit more on that housing part. But I'm sure there's going to be money available.
And a little bit more is very appropriate because we have about 3 minutes left for the program. Representative Higley.
Yeah, again, the figure that I mentioned was $50 million for that transition piece to get the homeless out of the hotels and motels. I don't really know a lot more about that. Again, my concern and I hope is what that looks like going forward. Again, we're using a lot of this federal money. But again, whether it's permanent housing going forward, what does that look like? What's that cost going to be and where's the money going to come from? So I wish I could say more about that particular program, but right now, what I saw was a $50 million figure for that alone. Thank you.
And I'll just say that it's all well and good to have permanent housing, but you should also have some of the mental services to go with it to help some of these people get onto their feet and become, productive again. So again, housing is fine, but you also have to have the services to go with it to help these people. Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to the conclusion of this morning's legislative breakfast. I'd like to thank Dan Pellerin, the Vermont North Country Chamber of Commerce, Todd Perano, and all of the participating legislators. The tentative date for the next Zoom gathering is April 19th, which will follow the format similar to today's, followed by the final gathering for the year, which will be on May 10th. And all of those are expected to be from 8 a.m. until 9 a.m., but the time will tell. As you all know, we're in an age where none of us know for sure what the status of COVID-19 is going to be tomorrow. So again, thank everyone for participating and stay well.